Having secured the auditorium contract, the Great Experiment commenced on July 27, 1929. At its peak, during the construction of the convention hall organ, Mider-Losh employed some 80 people. A full 50 of those employees were assigned to the auditorium.
As an adventure in organ construction, this was going to be no easy task. Delivering an instrument which had rare or unheard of specifications was certainly going to be a challenge. But this was built at a time when man was building increasingly taller skyscrapers and ever larger ocean liners, and man's arrogance, man's pride wouldn't accept limitations.
The U.S. economy surged throughout the 1920s. Confidence and an impressively performing stock market was at an all-time high. But in October of 1929, the market collapsed, and the slow descent into the Great Depression began. The bottom came in 1932. It would be over 2 decades before the market recovered. Most American organ builders were forced to scale back operations. Some closed entirely. The convention hall organ's future looked grim.
By 1930, the effects of the Depression were really starting to take hold, and the city, because of unpaid taxes, couldn't afford to pay Mider-Losh to build the organ. Also, many of the company's church clients were unable to meet their financial obligations to the firm as well.
Mider-Losh was forced to reduce its payroll. Production slowed, and tensions between Losh and Richards were on the rise. The contract Losh had signed with the city gave Richards wide latitude to make specification changes during construction. Richards continued to expand and modify his design, even in the face of the company's increasing financial crisis.
Richards increasingly resorted to the powers afforded to him by the contract in order to change pipe scales and wind pressures to basically make the instrument louder in order to fill the room, and all this had to be done without any extra expense to the city itself. Losh, on the other hand, objected to the changes, firstly because they were inartistic, he said, and secondly because, of course, it was his firm that was having to bear the cost of them.
The conflict between Richards and Losh escalated until Losh was ultimately fired. A further blow was dealt when the city's mayor, a great proponent of the project, passed away. His successor was not as supportive, and it became increasingly difficult to secure funds. George Losh continued the work, but was faced with months of delays, arguments, and indecision. Finally, on December 5, 1932, Richards issued the organ's certificate of completion. It said that the cost overrun was near 100%, taking the total to around 500,000 Depression-era dollars. Not surprisingly, given the economy and the project's history of turmoil, final payments due Mider-Losh would be paid only after some highly publicized court battles.
The court cases that came about were really a mountain made out of a molehill. There was really no case to answer. The contract was devised and included specifications of uniform bids from organ builders. So they were all competing for the same thing and they were stating their price on that basis. However, Richards did have the authority within the contract to change any of the specifications he wished without reason. And the change of price had to be borne by the organ builder. Now, Losh signed up for that contract. It was there in black and white. The issue never needed to go to court. But of course, it did go to court. There was a lot of bad publicity. The organ was never recognised as the king of instruments, as it surely was. And the consequence was that Richards didn't get re-elected as state senator subsequent to that, and shortly after, in fact, Losh died.